open, and they're used to pushing them open with their faces. So every once in a while, I'll get just like a headbutt into my door.
I mean, that's what you want.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, welcome back once again to this week's podcast where we talk about dogs opening doors with their faces. This week's podcast is going to be brought to you by Pro-Life Mythology and QAnon Instagram aesthetics.
This week's podcast is also brought to you by Fantasy Island and Total Landscaping.
I am your host, Madison.
I'm your other host, Jesse James. My original brought to you by this week was going to be brought to you by Biden and Trump and Edward and Jacob, but I feel like that'll be in the podcast enough to where we won't need to have that be the startup.
Yeah, I think we'll cover all of those bases over the course of the podcast.
Excuse me while I get this set up.
Ooh, is like fancy water happening?
No.
Or is alcohol happening?
Yeah, it's fancy water.
Oh, okay.
It smells like what I would imagine a just starting up, no customers yet day at the Fantasy Island adult bookstore might smell like.
I do not like when water has a smell to it. I think that is wrong.
Oh no, this is sake and some of the London Pink.
Oh, okay.
But I heated one up beforehand and didn't want to mix them together while they were too different.
That makes
also,
sense.
This is too tall to go in the microwave.
I admire the glass. I actually don't have any alcohol cocktail things this week. I do have a decaf coffee because I'm crazy like that. So that's all I got. Oh, and a fancy little orange.
I mean, those are always good.
Yeah. My snack corner is a little lacking this week because I don't have any of my shit together, so.
That's fine. I have a snack corner brought to you by, what would they call this on a podcast? A mailbag? I'm going to call it a care package.
Ooh, yeah.
I got a special delivery from the, I guess, Welsh and Mexican side of the family, which is to say the side of the family that knows cooking and treats well. Cooking didn't come into play with this one. This is just a whole lot of action. Oh boy. I've fucked everything up. There we go. Don't worry about the sounds.
It's okay. I'm doing chewing ASMR in the meantime.
Get that microphone up a little bit more.
I need a new wedge.
Do you think
that squirted everywhere?
Yeah, that was tactile. So, do you think you could control a video game by like the amount of noise of the chewing? Is that?
I don't know that I could do that, but there might be another way.
Yeah, there might be.
If only someone could invent a way for me to do that while also strengthening my pelvic floor. That's what I want.
Yeah. Video games, the way of the future. Anyway, so I'll go over some of these. I believe these are my sister's favorite. I got a nice set of clowns.
I have seen those.
Yeah.
And never wanted to try one. So
Fuck. I'm never good with the paleta peyosas. No good. No good on the pronunciation, especially when I can't clearly see the words. But they're clown marshmallows, clown treats, and I might keep one of these out and eat it so that people. You say you haven't eaten one of these, right?
No.
So for everyone who hasn't, I would like them to see what these look like.
Yeah.
And then
I'm curious.
Also, these are always very good. They are essentially just a whole lot of coconut jammed together.
That's pretty good.
Which is excellent. It's kind of like a small macaroon, like a Spanish style macaroon. But these are really weird because kind of like candy corn, it always feels like each of the colors tastes a little different. It's probably just me, but that's definitely been my history with it. We got these guys. These are always very good.
Palettes home.
Yeah.
It looks familiar.
Yeah, they're tasty. Then we've got I got a half bag of these, so I imagine the other half is with my sister. And these are good, but they are definitely in the. I would put them closer to the goop section, even though these are technically like caramels. They're excellent, but along with these, I got the full goop experience. So I've got these guys, the little chili spoons.
Nice.
These are always
those.
good. But I rarely get these, and these are just the tamarind pulp.
Oh.
Got me some goo bags ready to go.
I've
I like
never
these.
seen those.
Yeah, you can see where my finger was pushing into it. They are goo. That is indisputable.
They look, yeah.
But they're very good. And then I also got these guys, which I just enjoy. If you haven't seen these before, which you may have, but these are, I would compare them to digestives.
Oh, okay.
They're just like small sweet crackers, but they're not as trashy tasting as like a lot of the graham crackers tend to be.
That sounds pretty good.
They're like honestly, they're just a better Nilla wafer. That's what I kind of think of them as.
Yum.
And this one I'm really excited about. Some Duvaline action.
Ooh, yay. Yes.
Not only is Duvaline excellent, but I was waiting to open these because Duvaline has always, in my experience, which I've had maybe too much experience with, it's always been, you get these guys, your little plastic spoon, which I'll leave in there for now, and you get like either strawberry and chocolate or vanilla and chocolate. Once in a while, there will be like I think the chocolate is more like hazelnutty, but yeah. Anyway, so it's always good, and it's generally always 2 flavors. I've never seen 3 flavor, which is what these are.
Oh.
So I'm very excited for these because I've not had the full tri-flavor experience. Tri-flavor.
That sounds good.
So that's the exciting stuff. I got a few other things. I got sort of a handful of what would essentially be Halloween candy, which I'll never say no to. I tried that stuff. It was a lot of like Halloween portioned, like regular things. I don't have the the stomach for like just sweet and not interesting flavors. So unless I'm drinking coffee, that stuff is usually like good, but good because I had a hunger, not good because I was like craving it. So I have a whole bunch of stuff in here. Like candy wise, I'm kind of a middle of the road person. If these were baked goods, that'd be a different story. But like stuff like this, I like, but I'm not gonna like pound through it. So I gave most of the other more recognizable candy bits, like orange Kit Kats and stuff, away because I really like them, but I'm gonna get more out of it putting them in other people's Halloween stockings like we all do.
Yeah. Yeah.
This thing falls firmly in that category, but I think the only thing I can do with it is make a cake or something. That's my current plan, because there's no way on earth I can eat this ever. It would kill me. If I had a handful of it, I might die. If I had all of it, I would probably be dead for sure. And it is a full bag of just Lucky Charms marshmallows.
No.
Uh,
No.
limited edition,
God.
just marshmallows, which also on the back it says, color the world with magic, it's your lucky day, truly you are charmed, which is sort of a nice thing to put on there since it's the last thing you'll ever read. But
truly you'll have diabetes after this.
yeah. But I was looking at this, and there's 5 servings, and each one is 3/4 of a cup. So there's more than enough of these for me to make an experimental Lucky Charms cake with. And that's where this is going to go, because I cannot ever eat this. So that's the situation over here.
That's pretty
I'm
good.
pretty excited. Lots of easy like snacks to grab at now. And it's always nice to have more goop in the house,
Always. Mm-hmm.
I'm
pretty jealous.
I'll need to get into some of this coffee before I do it, but look forward to seeing this terrible thing.
It reminds me, I think one reason I feel so negative towards it is it reminds me of the SpongeBob popsicles.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I just don't have good feelings associated with that for some reason.
I very rarely got ice cream out of a truck, but I did a little bit when I was very young. And the SpongeBob / Ninja Turtle / smiley face, like bubblegum eyes, which honestly, the bubblegum eyes are probably the thing that would taint that memory. That is definitely something that I also think of with this. The only thing that stops that is that I've had a lot of treats that are chocolate covered gummy for whatever reason. And that's a little closer to what this is. So
interesting. Okay.
But yeah, I need to work up my bravery, so I'm gonna have to do a little more coffee and a little more sake, and then I'll bust into this clown boy.
Oh God.
Also, okay, paleta payaso. That's right. I always mix up the O and the A at the end of payaso. Anyway, and I'll need you to note this is a mini.
Oh, okay.
So when you see the size of it, remember it's the small one. But for reference, if this box had come full of conchas, I would have probably eaten half of them by now, and would probably have not gotten out of bed today to do this podcast.
That was a good thing for everyone. That didn't happen.
Yeah. Speaking of not getting out of bed, yesterday I woke up with a pinched nerve in the left side of my neck, and it is still not amazing. But yeah, I can get my head to the side now. So good news on that front. Feeling great compared to yesterday.
Well, I'm glad that it worked out to reschedule for today then.
Yeah. Do you want to take the reins?
Yeah.
My shit is stupid over here.
Well, my shit is also stupid, but um, mm, let's see. I could explain this. Well, I don't really need to explain this. I did sad girl bangs, so
Hell yeah.
yay. It's been a while since I had bangs. A long time. Well, and by a long time, I mean maybe a year, because I do this kind of shit to my hair all the time. So
It's a
yeah,
winter look for sure.
I like it for winter. It keeps my forehead warm.
Now
I
is
don't.
now are the bangs of our discontent.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um.
I honestly, I like my current hairstyle in terms of like things I can do with it. Uh, it's a little more scene kitty than I would enjoy, but at the same time, it's usually back and it's usually like, at least it doesn't look like Last Samurai because my hair is too thin. So that's a plus because that was one of my worries when I realized that I wasn't going to be able to cut my hair like a human for a while.
Yeah.
Um, the side shave and the long uh, middle is basically the closest I can get to having guy bangs. Because when I did have guy bangs, when I had my own sad girl bangs, uh, it was exactly what you would imagine, which is to say, real bad. Uh, and I looked like the worst budget actor version of like Caesar for a couple of days because it does the like weep. uh, which
That's
is
a good mental picture to have. Yeah, I like that.
it's sucks because almost every character I play in like a video game setting, if I have the option, I will give them straight across bangs that are like coming down to like maybe a centimeter above the eyebrows because
Yeah.
that's like one of my favorite looks. It's such a like aggressive fuck you look and it works for everything, especially because, you know, as games have kind of come along, you have the option of like photo modes and stuff where like you can give them facial expressions and there is nothing better. I can actually send you, I think the latest Pokemon I have a version of this. uh if you give yourself those bangs, it is consistent. If you also have crazy eyes, it's the best look ever. It's just like down to here and then eyes that are just like ah, and it's like a frame for the crazy that I really enjoy.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I do enjoy that. Yeah. Uh my thinking when I was trying to attempt is a lot of people are doing these like cool curtain bangs that are just like middle part and then kind of tapered,
Yeah.
which is kind of what I wanted to do, but I always forget that my hair is not like everybody else's and it sucks instead. So I'm having a really hard time with like, I don't know, getting it to not look dumb and to not look like I'm an anime character.
That's the thing is I think the look is good just like as you currently had it. But there is
Like,
an anime quality to it that I
yeah,
think you have to kind of accept. Like you can't really get away from
I
it,
gotta just
unfortunately.
lean into the anime-ness.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Honestly, I think a lot of people would be happier if they just leaned in a little bit to anime. If there is anything in
It's
anime
true.
that the real world could take from reasonably, it's the aesthetic. So uh, I think that's the least problematic thing to lean into.
There are worse things, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll probably stick with
Speaking
uh
of that, actually, there is a trend in anime. You know how there's always like whatever stupid anime trend exists, and you'll see it like creep in on the corners of social media and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is a trend lately of ear cleaning in anime. The version that uses the hook brush, the long ear brush with the
Oh,
little hook on the end.
yeah.
I haven't seen anything. I say this because I saw in 3 shows that just popped up that came out like the last couple months, and I don't know why. Because the last big thing I remember, other than rotoscope dancing, was the stupid putting a like iced coffee in your cleavage thing.
Hmm.
Uh, which whatever, that's perfect fodder for social media shit. But the ear cleaning thing, other than being generally pro on the message of not destroying the environment through the many ways we do, like with 1,000 ear swabs. I think that they're just looking for something to do that with in Japanese culture, I guess. But
Hmm.
I would rather the version that real people do, which is just like paper towel or something. Uh, or just not getting into your ears with tiny brushes. That's also fine with me, honestly.
Yeah, I haven't seen the anime world side of this at all actually, but I have gotten a lot of ads for this contraption that you like. It has the little wire hook on it, kind of, and there's a camera on it, so you can like dig into your ear canal and then also plug it into your phone and like see what you're getting real close up.
Nah.
Yeah,
I don't
I think
need to
it's really
see
interesting.
what I'm getting. I think that's where it
There,
loses me.
I think I enjoy gross things like that. Like I that kind of ear shit, pimple popping, all of that shit I incredibly like, and it's all very popular right now. So apparently we're
There
all just nasty, nasty
no,
people.
that's a standard thing. That's not at all weird to be into that. But uh that's actually, if you go into the weird corners of flash gaming online that still exist, even though they shouldn't. Um, like probably a quarter of all the games that exist are Disney princesses that you can like clean their ears and teeth and like skin.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
that's the thing though. It's exactly that stuff. It's like, no, just take your mouse and or tablet and take care of all their hygiene needs. It's just very weird to
Yay.
me. But
Yeah,
they're
that's where I
also
draw the line.
they're also children's games. Like that's the thing is I think people are just naturally sort of drawn to the progress of personal beautification or improving is just a weird drive in everybody.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in people who have like anxiety or obsessive compulsive stuff too. Like
Yeah.
I have a like skin picking problem, which my face is constantly fucked up because I'm like picking at my face. Which is one of the reasons I got so into makeup. But I think there's a lot of people who are in it for that. Yeah, like the progress and the cleaning and that. I don't know. It's very interesting to me, like the psychology of that, but makes sense.
I imagine it just comes from uh, mutual grooming slash general animalistic bullshit.
Monkey shit.
That's a bunch of monkey shit.
uh, yeah.
hmm Um, oh, I saw a lot of bad movies again this week. Nothing
Hmm.
that angered me in the same way as it did last week. Plus, we only had a handful of days between this and our last, so I didn't feel like ramping up the torture on myself too quickly.
Right.
But look out for next week's full week in the middle style podcast, because I'm starting to see some rank shit show up on all of the options.
I'm excited to start going through the holiday stuff.
Yes, me too. I've been watching a little bit of older stuff, and I've been bookmarking some things that we might need to watch mutually to like talk about, because there's some stupid looking shit, and there's some sequels coming out.
Oh, yes.
So that's exciting. That's I think I sent you that thing. They are making a sequel to the Princess Switch, and by making I mean it's coming out this year. um, at the end. At the end of the Princess Switch, go back to like episode 6 or something for our discussion on that. What was left unsaid? Was there anything in that movie that they needed to finish?
Seemed pretty wrapped up to me.
Yeah.
From what I remember.
That whole movie was like, I guess we should switch. Good idea. Like, that's it.
We did it. We switched, and then it worked out that they could like kind of stay permanently switched, sort of, I guess, a little bit. But yeah, I don't remember there. I'm curious to see what the plot is going to be. Although it's going to probably be something dumb along the lines of the second Christmas. Is it Christmas Prince? Yeah, where they're like, oh no, suddenly we're super bankrupt, and that's the whole plot of the movie.
Also, I went and read and watched some breakdowns of the Christmas Prince series, and the implications of the world are basically all focused on the idea that that world is terrible, which I love, because it's fairly explicit if you look into it, like the actual line of events and everything, but it doesn't come across when you're trying to just suffer your way through it in the first place.
Yeah, you don't really think about it, but yeah, I think I saw maybe the same video or video essay that you're talking about. I think it was called like the festive dystopia of a Christmas Prince or something like that.
That could be.
Really
I think
funny.
there was also a write-up on it. It might have been on Sean Baby's site. I don't know. If I look back through stuff and find it, I'll send it to you, though. Relatively similar information to what it sounds like we both watched, though. I just want to touch on my intro topic of Fantasy Island and Total Landscaping. Do you know what that's from?
Does it have anything to do with Total Drama Island?
It doesn't. So
thank God.
This is one of the few truly like political based things that I wanted to talk about. Because right now we're just kind of in the weird middle space of what sounds like a bunch of impotent garbage from the Trump administration that we'll probably have to deal with for the rest of the year. And then looking forward to Biden.
Yeah.
Which is, I think looking forward to Biden might be the new indicator of people who don't give a shit about anything that's happening in the world.
The brunch goers and the grillers of the world.
Let's Get to Biden is this month's When's Brunch. It's very, very shitty. For example, easy example, just look into Biden's crime bill. Just type Biden's crime bill. It's
if you want to be really scared, watch his speech that he gives.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the stuff that he says is pretty like mask off. So
yeah. He is a friendly face on pretty pro authoritarian shit, but he is more of a police and government should be uncontested kind of person. And he also is one of the driving forces behind the war on drugs. And when I say the crime bill, I say that partially because he's like the author of a lot of that. And that is how we got to this. Like, that is part of the triggering factor in that our country is doing as bad as it is in the first place. There are a lot of reasons why Bernie bros were against Biden more than any of the other sort of shitty fish people that were in the race for the Democratic ticket. And it's because he and Harris were the two people who were like going to stop a lot of the progressive stuff that we were trying to do. So, you know, it isn't Trump, and that is worth celebrating, but like, just take that into account. I think the biggest thing that has happened, I mean, it is the removal of Trump, but also the fact that, like, I've said this before, like, we are taking away the free pass that people had for the last 4 years to be openly and incredibly racist on like a ground level. So that is a huge plus.
It's the hope. Yeah.
Not giving suburban America a free pass to be like, I hate non-white people is the thing we're taking away, and giving the option, even if it's through all the means that we don't want, to actually fight back against that is important. But that should be about the only thing you're happy about right now. So try to work through the feelings of relief and get back to a state of being a little bit pissed off after the holidays, because that's when that has to be relevant again. Just enjoy how sad Trump is for now.
Yeah,
that's important.
Making me pretty happy.
A lot of sad golfing.
Yeah, get your good vibes from Trump's sad golfing, and then ground yourself by paying attention to who Biden is nominating for his cabinet, because it's not great. Real bad. I think it's like some people from Lyft and Uber and Amazon. It's like
it's also
make that up.
Coming on the coattails of California, a lot of states passing a lot of really good shit, but California passing like protections for the gig economy as like not for people, for the economy part of it.
Yeah.
Which basically is, I mean, you want to get down to sort of inflammatory statement shit. That's sort of like modern lower and lower middle class slavery. Like, that is what is being propped up right now. And people have to kind of smarten the fuck up on that shit, because it is definitely of all the problems, the gig economy is the thing that I think has the most armament against younger generations. I think there's a lot of people who grew up with it and think it's normal. But like all of that shit, the older generations just think that it's another way people are being lazy and not something that's actively killing everybody, and actually way more work than previous generations were doing on that shit. So if you didn't want your 8-year-old to be working in the back of a restaurant, you should also not want the gig economy to be a thing at all. Because that's what you guys and you guys being older people and all of us are going to be doing instead of retiring until we, I don't know, die at 70 or whatever.
Instead of retiring and supporting older people. So it's going to come back.
There will be no support for older people from our generation. There can't be. Yeah. We're living paycheck to paycheck until like 60. So fuck off, I guess, is what I'm saying.
It also, I didn't learn much about this until recently, and I still don't know a ton about it. But the law or whatever that we're talking about, I think is called Prop 22.
That
Um,
could be.
I think that's what it's called, and Uber and Lyft in California, I didn't receive any of these ads or anything because I don't live in California, but they basically spent an astronomical amount of money to like just advertise against Prop 22 and get general opinion or sorry, for it, I guess. Um and they spent, I don't remember the number, but I read an article saying that it was like the most amount of money that had ever been dropped on a campaign for something. It was just a lot of money. It was like billions of dollars, I think. Um,
Uh,
so that's
that's
pretty gross.
that's a bummer because the that stuff is usually the amount of money that they spend on the anti-environmental regulation stuff.
Yeah,
So
it was a lot of money, and I also had read a little bit about their like internal messaging to people who work on Uber and Lyft. They um, I heard one anecdote that they created some sort of pop-up, like when you opened the app for the drivers, that you would
yeah,
have to say that you agree with Prop 22 or press OK to like proceed with the rest of the flow, which is
yeah,
incredibly nasty. So,
yeah. If you say 80% of all drivers agree with this, that's already a very low number if you're doing that kind of thing.
oh,
Just so
and that's what they did is they used that data
yeah,
from that to say that their drivers agreed with it.
just so you know, this is the description of the proposition. Uh, so Proposition 22 titled exempts app-based transportation and delivery companies from providing employee benefits to certain drivers. uh, it's a California ballot proposition appearing on the ballot for the general election of November 3rd, 2020. Uh, it was passed with a 58% vote. So they spent that much money and they got 58%, which a ballot initiative getting percentages that aren't way tipped in one direction is weird in the first place. To me, it might be the norm, but um, let's see. Yeah, so it appears the text of the actual ballot includes uh, making all of these companies considered independent contractors instead of employees. So that's essentially what they're doing is they're your friend or your uncle who does handyman work, that's now the amount of protection you get for being in the gig economy, which is replacing all of the things that did have to give people benefits, and also benefits are the only way that most of us get any health care. So you've
Right.
actively probably stripped healthcare from like a few million people with something like
Mm-hmm.
that, at
And
least.
at least, I mean, the way and the way that they tier the benefits that they're giving to their drivers and the delivery people, it's tiered based on how many hours they're working.
Yeah,
But like the time they only those the only hours that count are the hours that they're driving or delivering something, like any time in between that you're waiting for anything, like that doesn't count. So,
yeah.
and they get to ostensibly set those limits as well. So yeah, all around not good. It probably did take away a lot of healthcare from people and
It's
benefits, whatever
it reminds
benefits
me a
they're
lot,
getting.
unfortunately, or fortunately, in the fact that people are slowly working on that fight. But um, the kind of confusion around that kind of stuff could be similar to like with tips. People always fight for like, well, we need to have tips be like a certain way because if we need people to be well paid in like a service industry, then like we're gonna need tips to be like given straight to them.
Right.
The problem is employers use that as leverage to allow themselves to pay well under minimum wage a lot of the time because tips are the actual money that you're getting. And then laws come in that tax those tips, and like there's essentially a one way for money to go in that industry, and it's majority up to the top. Like all of the labor that they're getting from you is not getting paid off in the way that it's actually worth. They're just kind of depending on the clientele to hold you up and taking advantage of all of that. So that
Mm-hmm.
that plus not giving people benefits, which are vital. A lot of people working jobs like that, from the people I know, working gig jobs, whether it's cars, like car jobs, delivery work, all that kind of stuff, or something that is more like mundane but happens to be handled that way. Gig jobs are essentially just the new version of temp work. But if you call it temp work, everybody who's over 50 knows what that means. So you can't get away with it as easily. But that's really what we should call it, is temp work. Like you are getting to be a temp forever, and they don't have to give you benefits. They don't have to give you, most temps, you don't have to get minimum wage because they can undercut you as they want because you're not a full employee. There's a lot of working for Nintendo. I like a lot of things about that company. I hate the way that their business structure is set up for people who are not like vital to the company or not like in a high enough rank of like education needs. They are all taken through temp agencies so that they don't have to actually be considered employees under the benefits of something like that company. And
Mm-hmm.
most tech companies do that same shit. Like they're sort of the inventors of how the gig economy works. So I I don't know. That's about it.
Yeah, that's shitty, but I think you mentioned a lot of progressive um stuff passed as well. Oregon
Yeah.
has implemented like a pretty cool new drug way of handling drug. Like they pretty much legalize all drugs under a certain amount of possession, right? For a
Yeah,
certain amount.
so like I think it's like you can't be a dealer, but you can be in possession of stuff. That's
Mm-hmm.
my understanding. So if you are bringing drugs to somebody or dealing drugs in general, it's not to the degree that it's like an industry for you. But they're also not going to put people in fucking prison for having drugs, which is sort of the thing that's always been a problem. Uh, and that seems good. I don't see any problem with that. I a lot of people I know have done a lot of different drugs, and it has affected them in their normal day to day life about 0%. Uh, and a lot of people before our generations did a lot of drugs,
Mm-hmm.
but they just sort of didn't have to deal with it the same way. So uh, if
Yeah.
we're, this is, I don't know. I don't want to be too pessimistic about that kind of stuff because I think that's a good thing. And I think that we should all be doing that every state. But I do think that the fact that we need to do that is still a pain in the ass.
That's a bummer. Yeah. But hey, it's nice to see progressive
Yeah.
policy happening and proves that it is popular. So,
Also, you want to see the area giving the most like salient fuck you to Joe Biden. That is like uh, he's argued through a lot of his very long career that people should be put in prison. He was a very big proponent of the like 3 strikes you're out, and that wasn't strong enough. So, like, fuck him. The
the only the I do have a little hope in that area, if only
Yeah,
just because of Hunter. in his experience with Hunter. And I think that's probably the only reason why he might, be having a different outlook on that. And yeah.
Yeah, if we can move forward in the drug stuff, I think that's better for everybody, and that does seem like something he might change on and is changing on. If that can lead to some sort of push towards like having to admit over policing is a problem, that's great, but it's not going to happen if we can't constantly push on it, because the comfortable place to be is always where people go, political or not, and it has to be uncomfortable. Like, people have to stay obnoxious in order for that to happen.
That would be a great t-shirt.
Stay obnoxious.
Stay obnoxious.
Look for our sad punk t-shirts in the future, because I'll add that to the list.
They're coming.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll be attached to my current site or if we'll make something different yet, but they'll exist.
I want to figure out a way to make t-shirts. Like, I don't think this is going to be possible, but make them in a nice, sustainable way and not like mass manufactured somewhere else and then drop shipped. But it's kind of hard to figure out.
The way for us to do that would be like
screen printing them.
Screen printing, which I've now done a little bit of. It's not bad. Like, I think it would be a good option, except it's a good option for people who have stable living areas. so that is sort of an issue. I think if we look into workspaces, eventually that would be a good way to do it. It's just going to involve some, let's call it Kinko's legwork to make that kind of stuff happen.
Yeah.
But, if we can actually have a working urban environment again, get some vaccinations going, I know plenty of people who could supply a lot of the stuff to make it at probably pretty low cost. So it is possible.
I would love to pursue that, because I think there's a definite niche of people who would like some leftist, progressivist, like themed merch, things with nice messages on them, or even just funny. I don't care, but it doesn't really exist in a at least in a form that I enjoy. So
making clothing that I think is good clothing, because I don't think there's a ton of good clothing out there. That has been something I've wanted to do for like over a decade, and it is really tough to find actual avenues to do it. But here's a plan. We both move into the Seattle Underground. We just empty out one of those weird rat's nests, and we build little doors in front of the holes we live in, and then we can keep all our money and work our way up into what we were told we could work up into, which is having our own space someday. We should check building codes, though, because I don't want a building falling in on me if at all possible.
True.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or we could start the renaissance of subway livers in the relatively fresh Seattle light rail.
I would not be opposed.
Start getting down under those rails.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
I've always wanted to be a mole person.
Dirt life.
Second t-shirt.
Yeah. Dirt life is definitely something we should work towards.
Agreed.
Anyway, so Fantasy Island Adult Bookstore was right next to Total Landscaping, which is where they did their press conference for the Trump stuff that Giuliani was at and all that, trying to say like, this is a sham after the election results were in. or at least enough of them were in to call the race, which I bet this will be still the case when this is out later tonight. But Trump has not conceded, and I doubt he will concede until the last minute. But though that is, of all the political things I want to watch, the press conference of him saying I lost the presidential race would be it. But I think he'll probably, when he has to, come out and be like, we won, but they stole it from us. Yeah. So who cares, I guess. Not really something to look forward to, because it's probably not going to exist like we want it. But they were apparently, the story is, trying to, so it's actually called Four Seasons Total Landscaping. Somebody, supposedly the story is fucked up, called into Four Seasons to get a spot to speak at, assuming it was a Four Seasons.
Yeah.
In the US, the assumption at least is that's a hotel with a like meeting area where you can do a press conference of sorts. The pictures of it are fantastic because they're in like the back area of a strip mall next to an adult bookstore, talking about how like we're gonna look into this election result, which is just perfect. So the other thing that happened is Trump tweeted out where the press conference was going to be and said it was at the Four Seasons, and then he had to correct it and do another tweet that said it was at the Four Seasons Total Landscaping. So it's pretty much like a sure thing that it was a mistake, that like they did not mean to get that spot, which also means somebody just totally fucked that up. So I'm really happy about that too. That plus Trump sad golfing for like the better part of this last week. Big fan of all of that shit.
All of that is very good. I just typed in Four Seasons because I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And I came up with an article that that landscaping place is now selling masks that say lawn and order, and t-shirts that say make America rake again.
You know what? I don't hate it. I think that's pretty good. I hope they got paid well for the usage of their space too. If they're it sounds like they might be okay people based on what you just said there. Like
they're at least smart.
That's a money-making thing, but I'm not convinced that's a money-making thing that would lead me to believe they're pro-Trump, because that's definitely making fun of his slogans. So more power to you. Sell that shit. Make more money than they spent getting that space.
Yeah. Also, their regular merch is completely sold out. Like all of it.
It is. God, that's such a poetic way for them to do that shit.
I love it.
Now we just have to sit back and wait for, well, I don't know. It has to be the right kind of fuck-ups for Biden, or it's just going to turn into another liberal tears bullshit thing. But also, anybody who's saying, like, we just need to stay civil, stop making fun of people, it's really mean. You can all go fuck yourself. I, for one, paid a lot of attention to the Alex Jones response, the intellectual dark web response, and the Trump response when that group won. And they were the meanest pieces of shit for like 2 full years. So everybody on that side of it can suck a fat one, because they really earned it after that shit.
Yeah, after like having to watch for 4 years compilations of people crying after Hillary lost, now they're like kind of also crying, which feels pretty good actually.
Yeah.
And no, I don't think that we should be nice or civil to people. I think we should definitely be making fun.
Like, it should be a combination. It should be as mean about this win as you want. And honestly, any like smaller political wins, because that is fair game. But like continue working for everybody to have a better life, because that pays off for everybody. Like you got a dog looking in. You get you get reproductive rights. You get hopefully some major schooling and environmental reform after the fucking shit of the last 4 years. Like a lot of that stuff has to be made better, as well as people being kind of shitty about the other things. So as long as it's balanced, I'm fine with it. Speaking of fine with it, there you go.
Oh my god.
Why, hello. Is this
I didn't
weird
even
to you?
try.
It's not even in the center.
No.
This is the main kind that they give. So like I've had different types, but this is the type that I've seen in the last few years. They're good though.
So the entire thing is gummy?
No, it's
marshmallow. Okay.
It's marshmallow in there.
That makes more sense.
And it's one of the only ways that I like this weird. This is like the same kind of wax fake chocolate you would get on a like a Franz donut kind of thing.
Yeah.
But honestly, the lightly sour gummies are the reason why it's good.
Mm. It's a pretty good combination of things. And aesthetically also very nice.
Aesthetically very good.
I'm really hoping that the YouTube algorithm pulls that out as our thumbnail. That would make me very happy.
And you got a little stick container.
There you go. It's perfect.
I know, some of the fake chocolate got loose.
That like waxy chocolate tends to be very crumbly.
Yeah. It's inoffensive though. I like dark chocolate personally, but I'll take that over the like weird like peanut butter cup chocolate they use that tastes like sweet iron. It's just not that good.
Bad. I used to like peanut butter cups, but I don't really even like them anymore. They're like too sweet, too much.
If you could give me a like very, very light dark chocolate coating around a peanut butter cup, so it just had like a little bit of the flavor, I would suck on weird little sugary peanut butter discs. I'd be into that. But the actual chocolate that they put around those things is atrocious. And I think more than growing out of it, I think it's just like I always liked sucking on the peanut butter because it was weird. And I never really liked the whole thing. So. Thing I forgot about last week, but I told you afterwards. Alex Jones was on Joe Rogan like a week or a little more ago now. And it's all the same stupid shit you would expect. And after begging, like literally begging to be on his election special, because Alex Jones is a complete publicity slut, he didn't do that. He ended up flying to like Arizona or something to yell at people because that's what Alex Jones does. But
which was so funny too, because I was listening to the Knowledge Fight about that, and they pulled the clip where I don't remember who he was talking to, but whoever his guest was, Alex was like, I gotta figure out where to go. I need to be somewhere in person. I gotta take a nap so I can have the things speak to me and understand where I need to be. And his guess was like, "Oh, well, I would definitely go to Pennsylvania, like for sure go to Pennsylvania." And Alex goes to Arizona.
Oh
Like
yeah.
his nap must have told him otherwise.
Um, yeah, I remember. So I've been going back through a lot of old Alex Jones shit and some old knowledge fights and things like that. But I do remember them talking about that and him talking to that guy on his show, uh,
Mm.
and how much that's just the like bitchest move possible to be like, well, I'm not going to go to Philadelphia though. um,
I'm gonna not do that.
but he'll go to Seattle and then cry for years about somebody splashing him with coffee. So whatever.
um,
But anyway, at the end of the Joe Rogan show that he was on, he's getting more and more weird and slightly more drunk. And then Joe Rogan uh, is like trying to end the show. And he brings up that Alex Jones should just try to be more positive and like be a positive influence on everybody. And maybe he could talk about the kind of problems that he talks to Joe Rogan apparently in their off time about. And then he drops that um, Alex Jones has been trying to deal with his Adderall addiction, which is a
mhm.
thing that has never been talked about before. And that includes in his multiple custody battles and like all of that shit that has been public. Uh, and that's really interesting because that colors a lot of Alex Jones's modern history
It
and makes it
explains so much.
it is almost it may be bigger in terms of like real action, but it's almost as notable as when he had to do his depositions for um, what it was the shooting at the school. Do you remember? It was the one that happened around when the first Dark Knight series Batman came out. Anyway,
It was Newtown.
no, it was the something Hook school or
Oh,
whatever.
Sandy. Yeah,
Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook.
There we go.
Yeah, that's.
When the Sandy Hook shooting happened, he defamed a lot of people. He did a lot of like things that directly led to people getting harassed in their homes who had just had kids die, things like that. And so he's been in a on and off again court battle since then. And
Mhm.
in that, at a certain point a few years ago, he was forced to basically talk about his process and tell people that he's lying, uh, even though he tried to like code it in the way that he best could. During that same time period, it also came out on his show that the way that he researches things is one, he looks at headlines, which I think everybody kind of knew already. He does not read shit. He reads like the first paragraph and decides what he thinks about it. He described it, though, more directly, saying that the Holy Spirit essentially tells him what the rest of it is about, and he just needs to see it to know what it means, which is a really fancy way of saying that he just makes it up. The second thing that is more not troubling, just more like almost sad, is that a lot of his rhetoric, besides like research based, people have figured out like sort of where they think a lot of his process comes from. Knowledge Fight, a couple other places. Uh, there's people out there looking at Alex Jones, and the consensus is more or less that he grew up in a really fucking libertarian household. With he's from an oil family. Uh, he he also is from a family that is like extremely into and has members in the Birch Society, I think it is. Um, and that is like a group that is sort of Koch brothers, like original Koch brothers style stuff. Like that's kind of the same thing. John Birch Society, that's what it is. That's sort of where the Koch brothers come from as well. It's also based off of like a guy who just died during the Civil War. So it also is a lot of like Confederate propaganda melded with modern libertarianism for like the right wing. And a lot of like Ayn Rand bullshit type of stuff. Like that's why they're so anti-communist and anti-socialist. Plus, they're in America, so of course they are. But besides that, the other thing that he described that wasn't a research thing, it was him admitting it, is that he, and by admitting, I mean talking about how amazing he is. He said that he's given visions when he sleeps, and those tell him the truth and the future. So he's literally just taking his dreams to be real and then reading headlines and taking info from his childhood growing up in a horribly like right-wing libertarian household and mashing it all together into Alex Jones. So in a lot of ways, also absolutely certain he abused steroids growing up and probably now also he's abusing Adderall. So like you're basically listening to the perfect American. He's right about that. And that's what the perfect American looks like, is Alex Jones. So that's fun.
Everything makes sense.
I both think people should pay no attention to Alex Jones and all attention to Alex Jones because of how fucking specific and appropriate his whole deal is.
I wish I could trust people to pay all of the attention to Alex Jones, but I'm terrified of that.
Yeah, that's why I use Knowledge Fight as a vector, because like I and some friends of mine have been sort of into weird Alex Jones shit for a long time, trying to figure out like why is this guy so shitty. And it wasn't until Knowledge Fight started when, like, they literally started when Donald Trump got elected. Like, that was kind of the point. That podcast started as a response to, oh, we've elected a white supremacist, like, just straight up. And the whole idea of that podcast, they explain it better, but my explanation from listening to it is we need to find out why this conspiracy theorist all of a sudden loves Trump. That was the initiating factor. And they're a great place to send to people because they are looking at it through that eye. And in the past, especially like in college and stuff, sending things to people that were like, can you believe what this guy's doing, was not always met with the response that you would hope. So it's definitely effective propaganda on a lot of people who want it to be. But that's just sort of what I think a lot more people lately are realizing about the United States, is the latent suburban racism is really just jammed up everybody's ass. So
and that is
accurate.
I'm regretting not having a thing to toast.
This is like the one day a week that I still drink, generally speaking. So I think about that as I'm getting drinks together without fail. So after this week, this is an especially spicy meatball of business.
Yeah. It's been, yeah, it has been this week.
It's been a cool week.
It's been a great week. To kind of decompress from the week, guess what I've been doing?
Mm-hmm.
Watching all of the Twilight series.
Fuck yeah! How? I need to know, where are you in the Twilight series?
I watched everything that was on Amazon. So they actually took off. You know how I started with part 2 of the last one because I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I watched that one and then they took it off like I think last week.
So this is a thing I don't think I mentioned. I was watching it on Hulu. Right after Halloween, Hulu was like, you can keep watching these if you pay us, I think it's $60 a month. Like, it got bought by
What?
somebody who's just like, Twilight's money, baby. So it's like a live TV or something bought it, and in order
Oh,
to,
like HBO or something like
it's not
that.
HBO. No, it's like live TV. I don't know what the fuck that is.
Oh,
That's the
weird.
thing about poor people. I don't know what shit is unless it doesn't cost very much. So, um,
I don't know what anything having anything to do with TV is anymore.
no, I haven't seen TV as it is uh, since maybe college, and the only thing I saw on TV in college was uh, the weird non-cable sports channel played sumo wrestling and arm wrestling in the mornings on weekends. Dope as shit. And then a whole fuck ton of TBN for research, uh, and that's about it. So I saw like what we could pick up off of Antenna, and I think we even had to have a weird thing because Antenna don't really do what they did in the past, just to like hook it into a wall to like get a tiny bit of shit. But other than that, I think the last time I watched television was in like 2003. So, uh, except
It's been a while.
very tiny update. Um, I guess this one goes out to my mom. They put what it's like Forged in Fire or whatever the fuck that show is, where they just build swords and that's the whole show.
Oh.
They put that on Netflix like 2 days ago, so now like that show exists, and I might just have that on when I'm working on shit now
All the
because it's
time.
stupid but entertaining. I've only seen 4 episodes in my life. It was all in a row in a hotel room, and I slept through like half of one of them. And
That's the only place I've seen it too, is in
yeah,
a hotel room. Well, that seems like it's a very dumb premise for a show that I'm going to watch all of, probably.
absolutely. Oh, look at this sword. A+. That's like the whole thing. And then it's like
Yeah.
a guy like, I work in a basement and hitting like metal and like, yeah, I'll watch that, sure.
Do they? I can't remember. Do they like take out their swords for a test run and try and chop fruit and stuff?
I think it's usually slightly different depending on what type of sword they're supposed to make. Because I think they do have like we want this, this, and this, and it's like a type of each piece. But there's usually at least one person from the bit that I saw that is like not quite good enough at the type of blade they want, and then it'll like snap or bend or something weird. Um,
Oh.
and that's the drama. That's what you're waiting for. Is somebody is like, we couldn't cut all the way through the bamboo. It twisted and it broke off at the end. So sorry. Like but it's always like the guy using it is like this guy dressed like a samurai or some shit. So that's also good.
I appreciate that. That's good. Maybe once I get done, well, I guess I am kind of done for now with my Twilight foray.
So
I'll watch that.
do you have access to an Amazon Prime thing?
Yeah. Yeah. So I watched all of I watched the second part of the last one. They took it off and I noticed that, and so I thought, okay, I need to watch all of them before they take everything off. So I have now seen in opposite order. The first one, first I saw the very last one, and now I've seen everything up until that.
Nice.
I've
Okay,
completed it.
so you are completed. I've still not moved past the second one, but I have a lot of opinions on those. So like, um, what I did watch that is slightly related is I went through and watched a bunch of scenes from Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and Taylor Lautner has never been a good actor at all. And so see if this lines up for you. In the beginning of the second one and in the first one, he's terrible. And in the midpoint, or like maybe the quarter of the way point in the second movie, he looks like they have forced him to take acting lessons and he's like slightly better. Do you feel like that's accurate? Because I feel like the early scenes in the second movie were recorded with the first movie. That's what it feels like to me, at least. Because there's literally a scene at the start of the first one where he's like in or next to the truck or something, doing his like, yeah, I'm acting at you, and then like 10 or 15 minutes later, he's like, I have emotions now. Like it actually is noticeable, even if it's not good still.
Yeah.
And I feel like that has to be what happened, or at least that's what happened in my brain.
They gave him an acting coach to get through it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could. I wouldn't be surprised. I did also notice a slight increase in expressiveness, I guess, with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you sent me some stuff, but that first movie, the acting is so fucking bad. It's so bad.
I could not believe. I knew it was going to be bad. I expected it, but it still surpassed all of my expectation.
Even after the version of it that we read parts of from the script is better than that movie.
It's more awkward.
Yeah.
It's more awkward than all of it. And I honestly have to put a lot of the blame on Kristen Stewart. She makes so many weird character choices that I don't understand. Like, what is this like scoffing tick that Bella has? She's just like all the time.
Every fucking scene with her where she's at the school, especially, is her like, it's just like, what are you doing? Or sitting next to an angrily staring Edward, just like,
yeah.
It's so bad.
Neither of these reactions make any sense. I do understand that, like, in that scene, like in the biology room, he's super repulsed by, or not repulsed, like really attracted to her,
right.
So wants to eat her, and like he's very over the top, so his acting like makes more sense there. But she just really, yeah, that scene in particular is really bad, with like the weird huffing and flinching and grimacing.
Yeah, it's not good.
I don't get it. I don't understand that. Because I mean, I don't know. I know that they're going for the vibe with her is like she's not like the other girls because she doesn't care about going shopping.
Yeah.
Which is another fun.
I realized in this series, rewatching it, just how much they were like turning sad girl into the new manic pixie dream girl with this movie, where it's just like nothing she does makes sense in real life, but for whatever reason it's perfect for this like horrible, like, I want to fuck a movie monster setting, which to be totally honest, that is what movie monsters have always been, so I don't feel like they needed to take this like wild leap at it.
Yeah, I think or I haven't read the book, so I could blame this on Stephanie Meyer, I guess, for all I know. But like Bella has no discernible personality at all forever, the whole time. Her only thing is, I guess, vaguely sad, but she doesn't even seem sad to me. She just seems very kind of like apathetic, like she doesn't really care until the one thing she cares about is her boyfriend.
Her personality trait, especially so, like I said, I've only rewatched the first and second, but I plan on watching the rest. I have, of course, somebody else's Amazon Prime movie stuff, but the personality trait that she has is above it. Like, that's the only personality trait, because at the end of the second one, her whole thing is that she needs to still deliver to Jacob that she is amazing and that, you know, she has a lot of feelings for him, but like that's not gonna happen. Like it is all about her being sort of above the situation, and whatever happens other than that is just sort of other people's problem.
Yeah,
It's a
not
very
nice.
weird personality trait, but that's like her being upset about him being shitty at school. If you made his acting normal and it was still just like noticeably kind of shitty, uh, her immediate reaction is to like start trying to like plot a way to make him understand that like she's good or something. It's not to like she does eventually get to the point where she's going to go like try to get out of that class or something. It's unclear in the movie. Um,
Hmm.
but all of her motivations seem to be uh, I need to be on neutral ground with everybody because I'm not dealing with this shit. It's not trying to like actually change anything or like talk.
Yeah, yeah. That was one thing that I noticed that too, because her the in a lot of movies where it's like my monster boyfriend or whatever, the whole girl e- like ethos is I'm going to, or this guy has some like internalized I'm not good enough or something's wrong with me because I'm a monster, and
Yeah,
she's like supposed
like
to go
Christian Grey,
rescue.
the star of
Yes,
Twilight.
she's like supposed to rescue him and redeem him or whatever, show him the humanity. But like none of that really happens at all. It's her. She doesn't even really seem to have any interest in like redeeming him or understanding. I don't know. I guess
She
she's
doesn't.
like inquisitive, but there's no like real deeper thing
And
going that she wants other than to just know.
if you put yourself in the place of Bella in that story too, it's not that she's unafraid of the vampires exactly, it's that she doesn't consider herself in the same kind of danger as anybody else. Like
Mhm.
every action she takes in the movies, because I haven't read the books, I've read the script, but everything she does is based around the idea that she is not a part of society. She's able to just sort of like not deal with that shit. It
Yeah.
her character is privilege as opposed to any sort of actual character, and I think that's part of why she's so unrelatable as like a fantasy vector, because most of the time you play up like the writer is often somebody who has had something happen in their life but probably still privileged enough to be a writer, especially of a young adult novel, and having the character's conflict be like so absent from the rest of humanity is weird.
Mhm. Yeah, she does have, now that I'm thinking about it. I can't remember if this is in the third movie or the second one. It's after she like figures out that Edward's a vampire or whatever, and I think that's when she's like trying to convince him to turn her. Um and she has a line, something along the lines of like, I've I've realized why I've always been so different from everyone. And I'm like, you're not.
Yeah,
There's nothing like different or exceptional about you at all, other than you just really seem to have no connection, no strong connection to anyone close in your life. Like you have no friends, I guess, is the
they
problem.
literally refer to her father as Charlie. Every character
And
refers to
it's
him as
never
Charlie.
explained.
Yeah,
It's never like, oh, I have daddy issues, or like I my parents are divorced and I had a hard time with it. Literally never, no
also
exploration of that.
I love how like three different characters say, "But what about Charlie?" in the second movie. It's such a weird. I
I love
specifically
Charlie.
remember in my lust for wanting to make shirts forever, wanting to make a "What About Charlie" shirt when I saw that movie originally because of how fucking weird that shit is.
I feel so bad for Charlie. I think is a better what's the word? He's a better and more relatable audience substitute than Bella is. I
Honest,
feel
yeah.
I relate way more to Charlie and just his general confusion with everybody. What is everybody's deal all the time?
If this weren't a romantic young adult novel, and it were instead just a book, and it was from Charlie's perspective, that would actually be kind of interesting.
I'd be kind of
Because,
yeah.
like, all of his long-term close friends die. His daughter is a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
Like the scenes where she's just screaming all night for like a year. like
Yeah.
the story from the perspective of Charlie would be so interesting. Like I'm even like kind of put off by the fact that he's a cop just from general copness, but they don't play that part of it up. Like he's never really a cop. He's just a dude doing different shit. So like
there's no function for him being a cop other than him being like vaguely aware of killings in the area. That's the only reason he's a cop, I'm pretty sure.
It's almost like his community has the cop live in the community, and that benefits everybody because they know who he is and he knows who they are. It's almost like that, but that's liberal talk. You don't want to actually do anything about that kind of shit. Anyway, I find his character to be far more human than almost every other character in that story. And I think they did a good job. I hate the other students at that school in exactly the way that I think students at a school should be hated.
Yeah. You'll hate them more if you get to the third movie. It gets worse. But yeah, I think they do a good job with making you not like those people. Although I feel bad for Mike because he doesn't really.
Mike is the one who is constantly into Bella, right?
Yeah. And
Even
then
though
she like shittily asks him on a date and then invites everybody to the date and then no one shows up except for Jacob and him.
My favorite part of that is that I think I had a thing that I was exactly Mike in the past, except by virtue of always being larger than a lot of people, I didn't have the last part at all. I was maybe a cooler Mike, but I still got to be Mike at least once or twice in my childhood. So I appreciate what they're writing there, but also like I especially in the second movie when he gets like kind of shit on at the movie scene, I think about him in the first movie and I'm like, he probably deserved that too. Like I honestly, if I went back in time and watched myself go through that, I'd be like, good. It's character building.
Character building. Yeah, I could see that. The only high schooler that I'm even vaguely interested in seeing their side of things is Eric, the one who says "La push baby" like 8 times. Because he's not at all, for some reason, when I read the script, the screen adaptation is not at all what I was expecting. They made him this like Asian yearbook artsy dude. He's like no, he's not the photographer. Maybe he's a writer or something. But he's like Bella's kind of segue into the high school or trying to guide her initially.
He's the one who shows up at the very beginning when she gets to school.
Yeah.
And is like
he takes her under his wing and is like, I'll give you the tour and everything. I thought he was gay initially from just...
I did too at the very beginning because his version of trying to hit on her is so bad that I thought it was meant to be gay that it wasn't.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then later on, I think him and the photographer girl are like kind of together. But
The
yeah, when it
photographer girl is one of the few people that I thought was interesting out of the students, but it's probably because she has the least time on screen.
she's she says the least.
Yeah,
And then who's the other girl? Jessica, is that her name? I can't remember. Anyway,
I
the
think that's
other
right.
high school girl, the Anna Kendrick
The one
plays.
who uh, is dating Mike at the end of the first movie, and then they don't explain that they're just kind of not dating anymore at the next one. Hmm.
Yep, that one. Oh, speaking of relationships formed throughout the series, by the end of the movies, I guess kind of spoiler alert for you, but not really because they never
No,
explain it. Uh,
I've seen all these movies. It's just been a while.
okay, like by the end of the movies, Charlie and they did. I don't even remember her name. Just a woman who is somehow related to like Jacob and Charlie's friend. I can't remember his name either. The guy in the wheelchair.
Oh, the guy who dies in the second movie,
Yeah,
the guy who
he.
gets pushed out of a wheelchair and dies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie gets with a woman from like the reservation or something. I don't remember what her name is, but she is like moved in with him in the last movie, and she's
Okay.
like a part of the family, like celebrating Christmas with them,
I don't
and
remember
it's
that
just
shit at all.
not addressed
It's
ever.
not. It's
She's
not
just there.
Clawface, right? Because she's with the other guy.
No,
Okay.
yeah, it's not her. It's a older woman, but I don't. I noticed it a little bit in I think the set not the second, maybe it was the third movie. They start like she's in scenes with him at his
Okay.
house, but it's never like we're dating. It's just I just
Yeah.
some weird background character development for Charlie, I guess.
Weirdly parent agnostic story. They really like the mom could have just not been in the second movie and the first movie at all, and it would have been totally normal. Uh,
Hmm.
there's no reason why she has to call her up. The only purpose the mom serves is that she's the proverbial um, woman in the fridge uh, in the end of the first movie because she's taken hostage, but it's actually just
But like not really.
stolen VHS tapes from like their house or something.
Um,
Uh, also, the action in these movies, I don't think it gets better, but it's really bad. Uh,
um it, it's very interesting for me seeing the last movie first and then seeing these because I the action in the last movie um just like plot wise that's when they have their big
right.
battle with the Volturi, so or
Sure.
Volturi whatever I guess, but so that by far is like the most violent I guess, um and there's just a lot of I guess because they're vampires, but there's a lot of like head ripping off and ripping off appendages and body crushing, and it's very violent. Like I wasn't really super expecting it,
I
and
honestly um the first movie has my favorite because the tiny lady with the psychic visions uh, doesn't do anything shitty throughout like the first two movies. Really, she's like the relatable one. But at the
mhm.
end of the first movie, she just jumps on a guy's shoulders and like twists his head off
Yeah.
very nonchalantly, and I do legitimately enjoy that scene as like a okay.
Yeah, I do like the fact that uh apparently that's one of the only ways they can kill each other is by like
Yeah,
beheading, I guess.
you
But
in order
and
to
burning.
truly get rid of a cold one, you gotta uh, pull all the bits off and burn it or something.
I guess. So, I mean, that's just visually after hating so many of the characters, I appreciate it. But
Yeah,
yeah, the action is pretty uh lackluster, especially for like the werewolves. I feel like they could have had them be cooler
there's just a
than they
lot of
are.
jumping into the air and having your shirt explode. Like that's sort of all the werewolves do.
Yeah. Um,
Also, a preternaturally huge wolf with vampire speed reflexes uh, is completely unstoppable in that uh, universe they've set up. I don't think the fact that the vampires have a chance is even reasonable. Like, they just kind of have to decide to, like, Dragon Ball Z it and adjust the power levels for people, because
yeah.
it it's not a fair fight in the way that they try to present it later.
Well, and they never really fight because exactly because it wouldn't be a fair fight. There, from what I remember, I couldn't tell you which movies these scenes are in specifically, but there are like I want to say 3 or 4 different chase scenes between
Yeah.
werewolves and vampires that end in just the vampires like jumping really far over a
Uh,
river, and that's like it,
yeah.
and that's done a couple of times at least.
Yeah, the weirdest move of I guess the vampires get away by flying sometimes a little bit, but not
It's
really.
just a good like double jump.
Yeah. Yeah, they had to open up the double jump to get away from werewolves.
Yeah, so that was fun. And I guess since you haven't seen the, you've only seen 1 and 2, so you haven't really gotten into this. So we can leave this to discuss another time.
Uh-huh.
But I really don't like um, the fact that this movie creates a lot of mythology to back up Edward's like shitty traditionalism
Yeah.
and just also just being pro-life.
Uh-huh.
That happens too, which I thought was interesting actually. That was actually a pretty interesting little conflict to have. Um, and I don't know. So as you know, in the I guess it's in the third one and the last one. In the third one, she gives birth, or yeah, they go on their honeymoon. She immediately gets pregnant because
Yeah.
that's just how good Edward is, I guess.
Uh,
After smashing the headboard and doing all that
I
business.
honestly, that's why I have not gone to 3 yet, because I remember those sex scenes being fucking disgusting. So,
I was expecting better because I
yeah.
saw the last one first, and in the last one, she's turned into a vampire. And apparently, one thing they never say until then is that, like, when you're a new vampire, you're like super horny all the time.
Right.
So there's a solid chunk of that movie that's just dedicated to them, like, doing their thing.
Well,
So,
in the
and it
first
seems
movie, they're
much
like,
better.
they have sex for years, like that shit, which, like, sounds awful.
It's
just terrible.
yeah, there's a line like that in the last one too, where I think yeah, Edward's like explaining why she's so horny, and he's like, yeah, it took Rosalie and Emmett like 50 years to stop constantly just fucking each other. I'm like, that sounds horrible.
God.
uh but the anyway, the sex scenes in the last one are fine, much better than the weird honeymoon one
I
or
just
the
I
other
hate
ones.
sex scenes that are a woman grabbing a headboard and a guy grabbing a headboard and then like like it's not, number one, it's not sex. And number two, it's, if you were actually there and that was what was happening, it would feel so performative. It would be like off-putting.
Yeah.
and and I hate. I have a very I have a high tolerance in that I love feeling that way, but I have a very low tolerance for that amount of cringiness. Like, to me, it feels very much, because I can't separate, like, thinking of them as actors doing this, and
Yeah.
they're not good enough actors for me to ever believe in the movie. So the idea of them being there and doing that is very much like say when you watch videos to torture yourself online of people doing Heath Ledger Joker impressions, and you're just like, ugh. That's what it feels like to me. They're doing their best Heath Ledger Joker sex impression.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very bad, reads very, very performatively, but that's just how good they are. Is that it's amazing. Also, I remember things incorrectly. Edward isn't pro-life. What I was thinking of is him being like, oh, he wants to wait until marriage to have sex with her. That was just like a weird traditionalist thing that he threw in, and I think that is in the second movie, or whichever one they get married in. He starts like doing these weird like traditional things, or I can't remember specifically what other things. Anyway, there is a slight pro-life message, but Edward was not on the side of it. It was Bella and
Yeah.
Rosalie, but whatever.
Yeah. Those movies and stories are something. I'm glad that we're going through this because people need to know that our media is always garbage and that
Yeah.
that garbage is meant to be enjoyed.
Oh, it's being enjoyed. Um, the thing I wanted to say about Edward, it wasn't the pro-life thing. It was that they constantly make up mythos and like reasons for him to be shitty at her.
Yeah.
Like all the weird I mean, all of the stalking is just explained by the blood thing, or he like really wants to suck her blood, and that's just okay because I really want
Her
to suck your blood.
still her reaction to the uh when she finds out that he's been in her room every night since she moved there is pretty disgusting.
Like what reaction?
Yeah,
She's like,
no reaction.
oh,
Exactly. She's like, "Oh." It's like, "Oh, gross.
oh
Cool."
no.
Yeah, you aren't like other girls cuz you don't give a shit about that, I guess.
I It could actually be an incredible study in codependency. It could be a very good movie about like not knowing who you are and kind of losing yourself in relationships and that kind of thing. But
It would
instead,
be it would be an amazing satire if I had any reason to believe that any of it was satire.
yeah. Yeah, unfortunate, but I'm having a good time.
I'm looking forward to hating my time with the rest of those movies.
Mm. Oh, and I have to say, I think my favorite scene so far is the one where she's like figured out after her Google searching, which is also quite horrible.
You like that fucking motion graphic Google search thing they do?
The cursor going. Yeah, that was really good. And then immediately after that, it's like they're going to school. They have just some weird unspoken glance, and then she like marches into the forest and like blows off school, I guess. And so does he after her.
Right.
And then he like reveals to her because she's figured it out, I
That
guess.
that scene is a fucking masterpiece of garbage.
His weird like zipping around while he's talking to her is so frustrating and cringy. I'm like, why do you have to like go perch in a tree and then go over here and then like break a branch in half so that she obviously understood.
he he pulls a root off of a tree and throws it, and it's like, you didn't have to do that.
she's she's like kind of weirdly trying to follow him or like chase him while he's doing these things. And also the way they film it, the location is so confusing.
Yeah.
Like they're in this weird kind of clearing with boulders and a tree, but like suddenly he's way up in a tree and so is she, and
Well,
now
the
they're
the thing that's super weird to me is in that scene they see the cliff that you see again later where the werewolves are jumping off of it in the second movie. You also see a lot of the scenery that you see in like general scenes later, which I'm sure was just like we have these filming locations. But because of how they filmed it, it makes it look like the school is next to the cliff, which is like next to where all the werewolves hang out, which it isn't. Like it can't be in the way that they set up the story, because like the tribal school is not near the other school, seemingly. It I think it's just bad cinematography, but it is especially pulling you out of it when he's doing his whole like, you're like my own personal brand of heroin.
Oh my
speech.
God. I hated that so much. That just kudos to Stephanie Meyer. I assume that was something.
No,
that's not.
When we were going through book stuff, Natalie, friend of the show, and I, years ago, that is absolutely in the book. That scene is like pulled straight out of the book.
Okay, good. Yeah, kudos to Stephanie Meyer for writing the cringiest fucking line I've ever read.
Zipping around and going like, as if you could outrun me, as if you could fight me off. That shit, that's just in there.
The worst. It hurts even more knowing that is in the book, because you know that she intended that to be a very like this is like a soliloquy. Like he's doing a soliloquy, and it's just so jarringly bad.
It's incredibly bad. Because the rest of it, I think, is just her writing the main character as herself. Like, that is how it comes across, because that is how you would write a character if you're a complete jackass, is outside of humanity, because you're like, she's literally looking in like an author would through most of it, unless it has to do with Edward or Jacob. Like, that is sort of what her character is romance and the observer, which I think for shitty artists is how you look at the world when you make a character. But her attempt at like a big scene with that forest explanation that is like the birth of cringe for me.
Yeah,
so gross.
That was pretty hard to watch.
He says something else that's really bad, because he says he does the as if you could run, as if you could fight me off speech, and he does the under his breath, the like, you're my own personal brand of heroin, which continues to be the worst line in that series as far as I can remember. But there's something else. Oh, right. It's when she's like saying that I know what you are, and he's like, say it out loud. That stuff. That's still one of my favorite like line reads from that whole series. Is the out loud.
Out loud. In that scene, I was like, oh, okay, this is foreplay. I don't like it. But
yeah, no, the way it's read
with no resolution.
Like no, the resolution is later when she's hanging onto his back and he's running up trees or whatever the fuck.
The visual of that is also just so horrible. I hate everything.
It looks
about
like
that.
a scene from like an old Star Wars movie that never came out. So somebody like not touching a tree but just like shooting up it.
Yeah, it does.
I want to show you something really dope and sexy. Get onto my back. Yeah,
I don't like the high speed piggybacking.
Yeah, with like blur lines behind it, because people didn't know how to make that look good. So it's just like the world going like woo, and him like hey. It's very good. It's like sub video game visuals. I love it.
It is. Oh God. So there's so many good things about Twilight. I should have taken more notes. Man, there was something else that I was gonna mention. I can't remember. Oh, in the second movie, his like weird force ghost telling her not to like do things. That was really cool. I liked that. Also, I like that the the like peak of rebelliousness and crazy things that she can do. Actually, there are two. If I remember, there are two things that she does that are like, this is how I get my adrenaline rush to see Edward. And the first one is ride a motorcycle, which is
It's,
like,
I mean, she rides on the back of one with a dude, but it's drive a dirt bike poorly is ultimately
yeah,
what she does.
yeah, like, okay, she uh, obviously is doing it like badly on purpose to
Right.
do that. But it goes from driving a dirt bike poorly to I'm gonna launch myself off of a cliff or cliff dive or whatever. But she seems to clearly have no intent to make it.
Right.
It's a suicide attempt,
Kind of, yeah.
sort of.
So the other thing, uh, I'm trying to think of exactly what the scene is. There is something else that happens that is crazy in like the second movie. Um, they resolve. Oh, that's what it is. Leading into the second movie, at the end of the first movie, uh, who's the vampire in the Cullen family who like is plotting something in that scene and like looking out the window at them, and then the movie literally ends with her like turning towards the viewer and being like I've got plans, basically. It's the fucked for 50 years lady, I think.
Oh, Rosalie.
Yeah, Rosalie is set up at the end of the first movie like she's going to be a villain. Uh
I
and I
didn't
don't
remember that.
I don't think that pays off in any
Mm-mm,
way moving forward.
no.
But yeah, go back if you can and watch the last like half a minute before the credits roll, and it's like her, because the first time I watched it I was like, is that the red-haired lady from the like evil gang? But it's not. It's Rosalie, and she's just being shifty
Mm.
for no reason.
Yeah, they definitely set her up as a villain in the first one, even outside, like even if I didn't see that scene,
Yeah.
they her character is very just like anti Bella,
Right.
understandably. But actually in the third one, Rosalie is like for a portion of it the only person that's like on Bella's team because
Right.
she wants Bella to keep the baby.
Uh-huh.
And Bella and her are the only people who want to do that.
Yeah. Again, that's such a weird plot point to have in that movie. uh but it really paid off in the end with the whole werewolf thing, so that's
Mm,
fine.
yeah. It, yep, really did. Also, did you notice? Uh, I can't remember if you see Victoria. Yeah, I think you see Victoria again in the second one.
Yeah, Victoria
Because
jumps
that's
into the water first. So when she
right.
takes the cliff dive, you see Victoria swimming towards her, and then you see an Edward ghost.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I am very sure. I guess I could look this up and be right or wrong, but I'm pretty sure they changed actresses for
Oh, really?
Victoria. I think so
Huh.
because the in the first movie she has like a lot of freckles and she's very like I don't know, she just has a different face. The Victoria in the second one, her face is like more narrow and angular, I feel like.
I
I
felt
gotta
like
look
they
this up.
kept her the same, but you could be right. I didn't pay super close attention to her, honestly.
Because in the first movie I she gave me like have you seen American Horror Story The Coven
Bits of it, yeah.
season? The what is her name? The character that is really into like the boho hippie one who like talks to animals and brings things back to life. I can't remember what her
Mm,
name is.
oh, it's been a
Anyway,
long
she gave me the same vibes as Victoria from the second or the first movie, and then watching the second one, I was like, I don't think that's the same one. I'm looking it up because I
time.
have to
Okay.
know.
Yeah, I would like to know if that is a different person or not.
Victoria Vampire. Twilight actress. Okay. Hmm. Oh yeah. They
Okay.
did. It used to be, or at first it was Rochelle Lefebvre. She's Canadian.
Okay.
And then I think they replaced her with Bryce Dallas Howard. And she's the
Oh.
lady from that one or she was in that one uh Black Mirror episode.
Yeah. She's what's his name? Howard's daughter, I think.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that until right
Ron
now.
Howard.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay, I never made that connection.
I,
But
I'm
I
more of
never would have guessed her.
I'm more of a Clint Howard fan. I don't really care about those other Howards much, so I like the hot one.
The hot one.
You should look up Clint Howard real quick.
Okay. Gotta see.
He is my favorite, though. Sarcasm aside.
I'm not very well versed in the Howards.
Clint Howard. Clint, Clint Howard's been in a lot of horror movies and like Star Trek episodes and stuff. Like he is more an actor of things that I enjoy. The only thing I think I saw that I like Ron Howard in is the narrator in Arrested Development. So
Yeah, that he does good at that. He has a very distinctive face.
yeah,
And
he's had his own like horror series. I think he was like the dentist and some other stuff.
this is just a really funny photo for
Yeah.
some reason.
Uh,
His forehead goes to like
yeah,
the back.
like Ron Howard has that same hair now, I think, but like initially Clint Howard had that hairstyle like when he started, and Ron Howard somehow held on to his hair for a lot longer. But
That's funny.
yeah, that's the superior Howard, I think. Much better actor, honestly.
I wouldn't know, but interesting. I didn't know there were two of them.
Yeah. Speaking of actors, so Sean Connery died like the day after the election or something, I want to say.
I think so.
So I was like, huh, I'm just remembering his like interview where he talked about slapping a woman or like how it's okay to slap women.
Mm.
Like that's the first thing I always think of when I think of Sean Connery. That and The Rock for some reason. And I was like, maybe he like people aren't talking about it that much except for like some very close friends and I. Maybe like it's reverence and maybe it's like Zardos fans and then maybe it's like people who are just sort of like because personally I like Sean Connery's work because he is for his flaws as a person he is like an artist. He totally got roles that ended up putting him in like the spotlight, but all of his opinion pieces and stuff from like if you go back and read his stuff from like the 70s and 80s is that he hated large productions and he just wanted to do weird fucking art shit, which made me really like his art self.
Yeah.
But he was famously like misogynistic and all this stuff. Um, but that interview, I thought maybe he had like later in life been like, I didn't really mean it like that, or I was dumb growing up. So I was like, huh, I wonder if this isn't a big deal where he said, sometimes you should slap a woman, just, not with, you should have an open hand. You shouldn't like punch a woman. Like,
Jesus Christ.
and I went looking for stuff and all I found was a later interview from like the 80s or 90s that he reiterated. They said like, do you regret saying that you should slap women? And his response was like, no, I still believe that. And it looked like it was on like 60 Minutes or something, like he was being interviewed for some like regular ass TV show for like major cable stuff, and he was just like doubling down on like, no, I still think you should slap women. So like Lots of love for Sean Connery as an artist, but he seems like a real jackhole. He's a real life Edward.
I need there's something very interesting about just openly being, yeah, that's what you should do is hit women.
I mean, in a weird way, I respect that more than people who like try to hide it, because at least you know
Yeah.
that's just what he thinks is right, which he's wrong, but at least you're like, okay,
At least
your
he's
relatives
upfront.
need to talk to you. But
Whoever's got to own up to you needs
yeah,
to have a word.
it's not the same as some of the like weird politician people who talk about like, well, we should be really good to each other, and then you find out that they like married a 15-year-old or something.
Yeah.
At least that.
At least be upfront.
My favorite thing on that topic is how like I like Keanu Reeves. I think he's a doofus, but I think he's like into acting, and I appreciate that. Um, when he married or is dating, I guess I don't think they're married. He's dating a woman who's like a year or two older than him, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, she's like he's dating an actual human being. That's so brave." And
Oh, God.
it's so weird because like it looks like a regular ass couple. Like he and she look very similar in terms of like, you know, you can see somebody's age at least a little bit, even in people who don't show it as much. And she has wrinkles and he has wrinkles, and they look like sort of similar in the way that a lot of couples like sort of go after people who look sort of similar. And like I kind of appreciate that, but the amount of people who are just like so impressed by it is kind of sad when you actually put it into context. Uh,
Yeah, that's pretty disappointing.
Especially after. So I'll talk about this real quick. Uh, I was looking into shit that has no bearing on anything, and it's actually, if I ever wanted to be in a spot where I talk to more people for a job or something, honestly, I don't think that I could talk about it and still be like, not. It's not like being in blackface or something, but it's definitely something that a lot of like people who aren't keyed in on like gay issues or trans issues or any of that shit would probably take as very similar. But there's a weird thing, and I was originally made aware of it because of weird, honestly weird TBN shit in college. Uh, and some weird Alex Jones stuff from like the late 90s, early thousands, I think. Um, there is a weird through line that influences a lot of like the religious rights of their reason for opposing gay rights. They often tie to the fact that it was fuck. I want to say it was in like the early 90s or late 80s, or it might have even been earlier. Um, there was a big chunk of gay rights that was trying to, because I think it was in the 80s, opposed to the idea that a lot of people have that the Democrats pushed through gay rights, which they absolutely didn't. The even Obama was like not into gay rights until it became an issue that could win a lot of voters. Um,
Hmm.
the original push for gay rights that got off of the ground level stuff was going to the UN with like a big group of different gay rights activists like working together. And like that's actually kind of cool to look into. But the big black mark that a lot of churches have taken and run with even today is that at that time NAMBLA was part of that group. And a lot of people know it through like South Park and stuff as the North American Man Boy Love Association, which is like uh, now people recognize that as essentially a pedophile group. Like
Hmm.
they are trying to make man boy love acceptable uh, because of a very set of weird reasons and stuff. But at the time, the perception of it, like people forget that a lot of these groups, if they have shitty things to say, and this relates to like weird politicians being like cagey about their actual life while standing up for something else. Initially, the whole thing was that gay people were demonized because people saw men in their 50s and 60s dating men in their like 20s and 30s and going, that's disgusting. We're already grossed out by these dicks touching each other. Now we got to think about old dicks and young dicks flopping around. The initial way that NAMBLA seemed to address themselves was as though they were in favor of that, of like age gap relationships. And then it slowly became much more apparent what they were. But I think it was after they went to the UN, and that got them pushed away from it. And then the larger group pushed away from that. Like they pushed the NAMBLA people out. I think once they realized who they were, like as a larger group, who knows if some of them knew more what they were after. But that is one of those weird things where being a sort of anti-church person and a pro gay rights person, even when they had NAMBLA thrown in, I think would be something that a lot of people would be quick to latch on to if, say, either of us had any money and ever were like going to be in politics or something. But I find it really interesting, sort of in the vein of like liking an artist who's a bad person, like Picasso or someone like that. Having those types of groups that like tried to push something forward and then you find out like for the wrong reasons. That's how I feel like ideally how we could deal with like the weird birther people and stuff like that. I just wish we had a little more, I don't know, social leverage against people being complete pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, this had a point at some juncture, but that's just something that I have been looking back into lately because it really is weird. It's like the whole Harvey Milk thing of like, you have a lot of people who aren't really good people pushing for something, but then like in the end, the flaws that everybody has ends up kind of leading to a conclusion that is better for everybody. And that's sort of been kind of to bring this topic around again, because I think it's sort of flying off the rails in some ways. I think that is how people should be hopeful for kind of where we're headed. Because things continue to get more progressive, but there are always going to be shitty people, like in every movement. It doesn't matter how altruistic it is. Like the fucking Mother Teresa stuff. Like she was a huge piece of shit, but she was very good at advertising, so it worked out well for her. It wasn't until after she was dead that people were like, "Wait, she sucked."
Doesn't Gandhi have a similar kind of story too?
Gandhi's interesting. That's I did a report on Gandhi where I got kind of obsessed with like a lot of the aspects of his life because, granted, I did this report in like 9th grade, but post doing that report and realizing that like one, I think a lot of people look so little into Gandhi that they don't even realize that Mahatma wasn't his name. That's a title. His name is Mohandas, but also he, in the world of modern times, if you were to just take him as an American with a cause that he was after, he would be like a polygamist playboy asshole. Like he's
okay.
That
makes sense.
Yeah, he was very into like young women. He was very into like a lot of things that were like acceptable in like a highly patriarchal system. The difference being that he was willing to give his life to stand up for everybody to live the kind of life that he thought was reasonable for people to live. And like I think that there's a weird gray area where you have to accept, like, honestly, I also like Zardoz. And if you watch something like Zardoz knowing who Sean Connery is, which I have many times, it can add a lot of interest to what that character is. It's kind of like watching Twilight and knowing like the work that Kristen Stewart and what's his name? Batman.
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. Robert Batman Pattinson
I
are
always
doing.
forget that he was Batman.
Well, he's Batman for this next year movie.
Mm.
And he looks like a pretty decent version of that, like a weird edging into authoritarian, but less authoritarian than the Dark Knight Batman, who basically turned into Homeland Security. But looking at those people and having more context for them should always be more interesting. And I think that's where we have to get to as a country to actually like go anywhere. Also, fucking Alex Jones talking about how he just, he wants to like settle down and become a painter and all this shit, which he has talked about before. And that's what fucking Bush Jr. did. And everybody fucking like gave up on him being a horrendous war criminal, like worse than Trump war criminal. And the idea of like not remembering who these people are after the fact is, we just need to stop doing it. Like, everybody needs to go to liberal arts college and learn that a person is a whole person and not a fucking picture. Also, I'll throw out a rant ending suggestion. I'll send it to you because I feel like you're in a spot where you want to like watch stuff just lately. You can find it on YouTube now. I had DVDs of it through a weird source. I basically had like not contraband, but like weird unlabeled DVDs of The Power of Nightmares when I was like just leaving college. And that shit is a great watch if you want to remember what the fuck America's been doing for the last like 15 years. And it I don't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, so I won't try to guess right now, but the documentarian who made that is like a British guy who does he's sort of like what people wish Michael Moore was, like doing a bunch of like very in-depth research and like pulling together a lot of like old footage and stuff to tell a very succinct story about like a part of our like political history, and making it incredibly interesting. Like, he maybe ventures a little too far into the poetic sometimes, but like that's fine. But it's called The Power of Nightmares, and I think people should watch that shit because it basically goes from like pre Desert Storm into like post 9/11, and it's super interesting. But I'll send that to you if you would like to view it between Twilight-esque things, because you should definitely watch that and then maybe take the edge off with a little what is it, Christmas Catch. God, that one sucked. I watched some bad shit this week. Anyway, rant over. But did you watch anything besides Twilight?
No. Nope. Just Twilight.
Okay.
Just a buttload of Twilight.
I watched 3 movies, like one a day as I was going to sleep. I watched Christmas Catch. I watched A Nanny for Christmas. And I watched Rodeo and Juliet.
Oh my god.
And they are fucking trash. So
Rodeo.
let me do a quick in succession rundown. Christmas Catch, I would describe, if you have ever seen Walker, Texas Ranger, as a movie that could take place in the same universe, but is completely relegated to side characters. It stars somebody you've never heard of, a couple other people you've never heard of, and a guy who I think was on like one episode of Gilmore Girls. um,
Okay, so no one I've ever heard of.
yes, Christmas Catch. Uh, so you know how Netflix will do that autoplay of like, here's a scene from a movie. They play like the start of the movie for Christmas Catch, and it's a woman dressed as, I think, like a helper elf at a Santa Claus thing, and people coming through, and she goes to hit on a guy, and there's like her partner and some other like optics guy are in a van, and they're like, just flirt with them. And she goes up and she's like, hey, and she's like doing this like weird, like really exaggerated sultry thing. And he's like, did you want something, ma'am? And she's like, ma'am, I'm only 2 years older than you. And like, and he's like, cop, and he runs off, and he's like some guy who did something. None of that matters. It's only to set up that she's a cop and she's bad at it. She's not good at being sexy and she's clumsy. And in that sense, I kind of appreciate some of the ideas of like really addressing a character quickly, but it's like a video game where it's like somebody shows up and they like trip over something, try to play it off sexily, and then like fart real loud. Like it's that level of like good comedy.
Yeah.
The story about it is there's a guy who is obviously not guilty, who they're investigating. They're pretending to be regular people, which obviously is going to backfire because people are very touchy in movies, which comes into stuff later too. These other movies are exactly the same. Also, these movies are from totally different years. They're like a 2000, like 1817 and 2020 movie, I believe. They're completely divergent years, and yet the way people react in them is both unrealistic and entirely consistent. So in A Christmas Catch, there's a guy who has a troublingly large chin and not a lot of acting capability, who the first time they meet, he's just walking through a police station, seemingly, which makes no sense, and also he shouldn't be there for any reason. And it starts off with a woman going to like speed dating, or it's not speed dating. It's a weird situation. So her two best friends, who aren't her partner, are at a cafe, and the one guy owns and works at the cafe, and the other lady just exists. And the lady is the sexy one, and the guy is like the gay best friend, but maybe not the gay best friend. Who knows? And they just have like a weird dating meetup at a cafe in the middle of the night. And that's how they meet, is she's walking away from it, and that guy is coming through apparently the police station that's next to her. So
Okay.
that's the level of filmmaking in this. And she decides to, in high heels, get up on a tiny stool to put a star on a tree because she's obsessed with Christmas. And she falls off, and he like catches her, even though he wasn't there when she got up on the stool. Anyway, so she meets him. They flirt really weirdly, but it's treated like it's normal. And then they continue to meet up, and that's like the whole point of the story, is that she thinks that he's a diamond thief. And in the most obvious twist ever, because nobody should watch this ever, a woman shows up who says she's from the FBI, and she's obviously not. And she gets the police chief, who is the police lady's mom, to to have her go and try to seduce this guy. And apparently it's a whole plot to try and find this diamond reindeer that the FBI lady, who is the guy's ex, seems to know, and she's not from the FBI, obviously, seems to know that he has it in an ornament already, and she could just break into his house at any time and take it, and he's gone all the time anyway because he's like gone working. But instead chooses to use the police to lie because she knows a guy who also is an antagonist to the main character, who's a safecracker, and that never comes into anything. Uses her connection to get a fake document to say she works with the FBI to get the police to watch him to get the diamond reindeer. It's terrible. The diamond reindeer is inside a Christmas ornament that also she hid there. So at the end you find out she hid it in the Christmas ornament, and the Christmas ornament is an old ornament from the guy who is the love interest's mom. It is the sloppiest garbage.
What?
Yeah, it is such trash. And even with all the spoilers, because you realize every single one of the things that's going to happen in this movie the second you start watching this movie,
right.
Everybody should watch this because it is weird how much of a, like, it's just the other side of public access. Just like it's bad storytelling, it's bad acting, it's everything mashed together, yet it is presented like it is a real ass movie on Netflix for you to watch right now. And that's A Christmas Catch. And if you were wondering, does he find out she's a cop and get offended? Yes, he does, for no reason. It's the dumbest. Anyway,
to be fair, if I found out my love interest was a cop, I would also be offended.
Sure. Like, that's not the most unrealistic thing in this movie, but when you see how they act, it's pretty much the most unrealistic thing. Anyway, everybody should watch A Christmas Catch when you're drunk, and maybe when you're like doing something else. If you want something to laugh at because you're, I don't know, just tired of not being able to visit other people, please watch A Christmas Catch. So that's that movie. The next movie I watched was A Nanny for Christmas. I have one note for this movie, and it's Token Dean Cain. Dean Cain is in this movie as a side character, but his face is on the front screen for choosing this movie.
Okay.
Dean Cain shows up in 3 scenes, maybe 4. He's on screen for a total of like 2 minutes. He's not the love interest. He has no relevance to the story. The only thing that he does is he is movie starts off. There is an ad agency working with a chocolatier, but it seems to be an in-house ad agency that is owned by the chocolatier. That will come into play by not making sense very soon. This lady works for it. She's presenting an idea to the head of the chocolate company, who is Dean Cain, and she says, well, like, if we're going to sell this, say it's your wedding. And then he says, my wedding. And he storms off, and they say, his wife left him, and she's fired. That's how the movie starts. Then she goes to her friend and says, so she lives in a nice-ass house in New York City. Like, has to be fucking expensive as shit to live there. She also says she's going to foreclose on it, so she's going to have to sell it and move back to, it's like Ohio or something. I had to check my movie list to make sure this wasn't in a different movie, because every movie has some shit like this. So she is a 10 years experience ad executive. She has amassed enough money to own a house in New York City that is large. She is working for the biggest chocolatier in the city, and she is fired and goes to her friend who is also working for the chocolatier, handing out candy canes, which pisses me off still because it's not chocolate. And she tells her, like, my whole career's done. He fired me, so I'm gonna have to foreclose and move back to Ohio. Which is like, it's a house in New York. You could sell it today and then get an apartment for a year. You're fine. But instead, no, she has to foreclose and she has to go back to Ohio.
Makes
So
sense.
that's already crazy. And her friend says she knows somebody who knows this lady who gets introduced by being a mom getting ready to go to work mysteriously in a scene that is explained by no one. Once again, this is a nanny for Christmas. I feel like these movies are so weird that it is not easy to remember what they are called. So this lady goes with this lead from her friend to see if she can get a job from this like other ad agency. The lady who's sort of introduced as being a mom who has a gigantic mansion, who is also saying she has money troubles and also is in a gigantic mansion in New York City, but seems to live maybe in a very nice part of Long Island or something like that, but like has a giant mansion on a yard that looks like it's in, I don't know, uh like the middle of Oregon, maybe. Like it is a ridiculous thing to say that they're living in.
Right.
Uh, so she goes and gets an interview with her, and then at the end, the interview was for a nanny position, not for a position with the ad agency.
Mm.
Uh, and she goes and becomes these kids' nanny. There's literally no conflict in this movie except for the fact that for some reason, so when she goes to do the job interview, she sees the most boring man on earth. He looks like if you took Phil Hartman and who's the dude from Breaking Bad? Cranston. Uh,
Yeah.
if you took the two of them and put them together and took out all the defining features, that's what he looks like. He's like stock generic white man in a suit.
Uh-huh.
His personality is fine, but it's the personality of a person who is completely unremarkable. And he meets her in the lobby and she just starts like hitting on him the second she sees him because he runs into her while eating a muffin and she wipes the muffin off of his face, which is already like, that's
Oh.
fucking weird. If I ran into somebody anywhere and was like, oh, I the expected reaction should be, don't fucking touch me. So it's already a problem, but this whole thing happens. She gets a job as a nanny, even though she didn't know it was a nanny position. Everything works out great. The whole middle of the movie is like gray. Like it doesn't exist. The only thing that happens is that for some reason she keeps telling this dude the like 2 times they hang out that like, yeah, I work for their boss, which she does, but it's inferred it's for the ad agency and
Right.
she couldn't possibly tell him. It's the stupidest. And then at the end, like the climax leading into like the conclusion is that he finds out at a Christmas party that she doesn't actually work there, but she is at the Christmas party and she does work for the lady who runs the company. And she's actually, they make a point at the beginning of stating that she's getting paid better than her old agency position to do this nanny work. So like she's good. And
Yeah, what's the problem?
and when the so when the boss finds out, this lady gets fired and the guy that she's been seeing who's way into her is like, I'm never talking to you again. That's the reaction to her being a nanny. So and then the kids convince the mom by talking to each other, they're like 12, in their room at night, that we're sad about the nanny. Then the mom all of a sudden starts making pancakes for them and invites everybody to a Christmas party and everything's fixed. It's so stupid. But again, all these movies that I watched, everyone should watch, they're trash. That's how it ends, though, is that she goes to the Christmas party and they're like, I guess we forgive you. For what? Anyway, it's also made very clear that she was going to continue to be fired as a nanny, but that's just sort of like steamrolled over. And I think she does get an ad agency job. But also the reason why the lady who runs the ad agency would let her watch her kids but not do any ad agency work, because at some point in the nebulous middle of the movie she does ask like, I could help you. Also, Dean Cain shows up again because the ads that they're doing are for his chocolate company. But she gives the idea of making it about Christmas to the guy who works for the ad agency that she's seeing. He presents it, and Dean Cain loves it. So it's even that of like, but her exact same thing was the beginning of the movie, but it was a wedding instead of Christmas. So there's not even any character development in the fact that she's like recycling it through this dude, and he gets that. Also, never addressed that he used her idea and it's fine. They talk about how she gave him the idea, but the only thing that comes from that is that she gets hired at the very end to work under that dude. It's never addressed that, like, technically that dude didn't do anything. So that's that movie. Watch it if you dare. There's children doing Shakespeare quotes. So if that entices you.
Okay.
The last movie I watched is called Rodeo and Juliet, and it's a terrible movie about a late teenager's mom who is a writer who you find out is kind of the most annoying person in the world, even though the main character of the movie is the daughter. And that's what the movie's about. She ran away from her like down home like country lifestyle, riding horses and working at a very rich ranch to go to New York City, because everything has to go to New York City. And she became a romance writer. They never talk about her romance books except for one scene, and it's very vague. And you find out the reason she ran away is that she was anxious. And then you find out at the end that the reason why she's very upset at every other character who's trying to get her to just relax is that she's anxious. And at the very end of the movie, the guy that she was after is like, I mean, I still like you, though. Like, could we stop fighting and just be a couple? And she's like, yeah. That's it. That's actually like the whole conflict of the movie. The rest of it is a girl trying to, by girl, I mean like a 17-year-old being played by a mid-20s person, like all of these movies. But the girl meets the guy. This is actually the thing we're talking about. The guy who is into the mom. They both have half of in a deed, essentially. They both have half of the ranch that the dead grandpa left to both of them. Apparently, he was a wily old dickhead, and he decided to give them both half ownership so they would be forced to get back together. But they don't address it that way, and he just sort of like dies, and then it's up to them to decide what's going to happen. So the whole movie is them like Romeo and Juliet, like Capulet and whoever the fuck, who gives a shit.
Montague.
There we go. So that's like the closest thing to Romeo and Juliet in this whole movie, is that they're upset at each other for seemingly no reason. And then every time that the guy is talking to his nephew, not his son, but his nephew, which is important because both of them have to get together. It's like a mother, daughter, father, son collection that have to be a couple. So he has to have a nephew whose parents died instead of a son in this movie. That's what's worth noting, because it's so weird, and like, my son and your daughter need to fuck, and we need to fuck too. Like, that is like really gross. But anyway,
but they added like 1 degree of separation. Now it's fine.
It's fine because he's a nephew. Those are going to be some gross family reunions. Anyway, so they spend the whole thing having it be whenever the guy is alone, the like guy who was her ex, who she's upset with because he has half the ranch. He's totally understanding of like, I don't know why she ran away, but like now she's being really mean about everything. And every time it goes to her, she's like, these assholes want me to do this, like running around yelling at people and like being up. She's supposed to be like sort of the compassionate figure too, clearly, and she is the definition of movie hysteria through that whole thing of like, no, I won't talk to him. uh, but then you find out that the whole reason why she's upset is because she ran away because she was anxious in the exact same way she is in this. And they get together after she's saying like, I just want to run away again, which is like kind of what you were talking about with Twilight, of like this weird, like, when a relationship is bad, you shouldn't just go, well, we feel exactly the same way about this bad relationship. Let's get together. Also, our kids are fucking. Like, it's just the worst. Anyway, so those are the terrible movies I watched this week.
Oh, God.
Rodeo and Juliet is... it feels... So it's a movie from, like, 2012, maybe, and it feels like it was filmed in the 80s. A Nanny for Christmas is from, like, not that long ago, and it looks like it was filmed in the 90s. All of these movies look like absolute trash, which is maybe the thing that I would suggest most about them, is they are nostalgic in that they are like maybe 2 decades old at the most, yet they look like they were filmed at like the turn of last century. It's really weird. They like spent no money on this stuff.
Rodeo and Juliet didn't have a nice big budget? Is that what you're telling me?
No, also, so you find out this weird shit throughout that movie. Like a few of these other movies, there's that movie I talked about on the last podcast, Operation Christmas Drop, where they just have a guy who like was in the military, retired, and now is like on those islands for real, and they just put him in the movie as himself, acting terribly.
Yeah.
There is some of that shit in the Rodeo and Juliet, where it's like this town is all focused around this rodeo thing at the end, but also the horse's name is Rodeo. And I didn't think anything about that until at the very end. So they're doing barrel racing, which is just like an agility thing for horses. Like if you've seen dogs do agility stuff, it's kind of similar. It's barrel racing, and the antagonist, who shows up in only the last like 15 minutes of this, who is just last year's champion and does not speak. She is just a woman on a horse who then disappears, and you never learn anything about her other than she's the champion. And earlier you hear about her, but it's like, but she won't be here. That's it. That's her whole character. She and the main character are wearing a similar outfit, like it was given to them by outfitting for a movie. Every other person that they show little bits of footage from for barrel racing is obviously a real horse rider doing real barrel racing far better than those two people. And they're not wearing the outfit. They're wearing like t-shirts and shit that they would do actual barrel racing in.
Right.
So then you have this weird like, and it's on the same film. So it feels that quality for everything. And it's this footage of real ass barrel racing and then fake barrel racing side by side. And then at the end, it was even weirder because the horse's name is Rodeo. And the champion, returning champion, who, spoilers, wins again, even though the whole point of the movie is to beat her. It's not a surprise, though. They have clearly telegraphed that that will happen. And the winner, never hearing anything about her, they make really, really sure that at the start of the barrel racing and midway through, her horse, Cosmo, is the same horse that she won on last year. In the credits, Rodeo the horse of the main character is played by Cosmo the horse. So obviously, this is actually like a group of barrel racing people that did all of the horse stuff for this movie, and all those scenes are from. And this main horse, this actor horse, is the horse that clearly is a barrel racing horse, like maybe a champion or maybe not, but they named the antagonist horse after this horse. It's the weirdest, like, was this just a horse people like requirement that you still want to have it be realistic to the real barrel racing they did in this town? It's anyway, just a weird bit of shit that happened in that otherwise unremarkable movie. Also, the main characters in that movie look like the most uninteresting actors of all time. Also, there is the one black friend that shows up that is speaking of the one black friend, I have one other short topic that I'll quickly talk about. But the black friend is an interesting character, except the person who plays that friend can't act so radically bad as an actor that the main character looks worse in the scenes with that actor because she's trying to respond to things that are like Goosebumps the TV show caliber acting.
Oh
And it's
no.
really bad. And I that's like those scenes were cringeworthy just because of the acting, and that's really rare to find in like a fully done movie. Anyway, I have one last thing to talk about, but I want to get to anything you have first because we're kind of running short.
Um, okay, so the thing that I wanted to, or one of the things I wanted to highlight this week is, do you remember maybe a couple of months ago, um, I think I talked about a local Coeur d'Alene influencer who was like, um, getting into some weird like QAnon sort of shit and spouting it on her Instagram with like 80,000 followers or something.
This sounds like something we talked about, but I honestly don't remember any details.
That's all right.
How has
It's
this progressed?
not well.
Okay.
So it began like the first time I heard of this person at all is like she was getting shat on Twitter for being just openly transphobic because was she made like some Instagram stories of herself watching some TLC show. I can't remember what it is called, but it's very like it's about I think it's about being trans, but they name it or like frame it in such a way that it's obviously made to be like an inflammatory show
Okay.
about trans people. Um, and
Secret
so
trans.
yeah, I don't remember honestly, but it's not I wouldn't say pro.
Okay.
So she posted a bunch of shit being like, um, that's not right, this is anti-science, whatever. Um, People started dogpiling on her for that, rightfully so. And then she participated and brought credibility to a like Save the Children rally going on up here
Okay.
that is all kind of part of that weird QAnon pedophile ring conspiracy
Right.
thing. Um, so that was like a couple of months ago, and I still feel like that is going pretty strong up here. I think that's
Is that tied in with the weird hashtags they were using to try and cover over the Black Lives Matter stuff? Because I
yes,
remember. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah, it was exactly tied to that. It was a like hashtag Save the Children, and they
Right.
were I don't know exactly where I think it started with QAnon shit, but then they started giving all these false numbers of children who are like sold into this sex trade in the United States, which of course it happens, I'm sure, but not at all
Yeah.
the numbers that they were saying. Anyway, it was just erasure for
Well, and they're
BLM,
focusing
basically.
it on the wrong people, also.
Right, right, exactly. So she's back again, getting like mad over um, uh, the election. Obviously, she's basically just using her Instagram to be like, the votes are fraudulent and um,
Uh
the
huh.
Dems are stealing the election. So she's just kind of back in like our local Twitter sphere of news. But I wanted to send you a an Instagram story that she had posted. I just want to see how you navigate these.
Okay.
Okay.
I've got my
Where-
phone. Let me look at this bullshit.
Okay. Just sent them. But she has fully taken on this since she started getting like being outwardly hateful and getting shit on more regularly. She's fully embraced it and is now kind of the I am the victim for speaking the truth. Everyone's coming at me and calling me ugly, and even though I'm pretty, I don't know, but
What is this? Also, like, that is just people not understanding online harassment. But what is this, like, I don't even get what I get that it's anti-left or anti-liberal or whatever. Uh I don't get what this is. So it looks like she has screenshot that the presidential winner has been projected.
on
Cir-
Facebook, yeah.
Circled the word projected, and then under it said funny Facebook. I think there's supposed to be a comma there. I don't know. Puts this cry laughing face projected
Project.
with scare quotes, meaning an opinion. The word you have to be looking for is certified. I don't know what the fuck that is in reference to, because it seems like she's indicating that it should say a presidential winner has been certified and that it would be the other president, I guess.
I think she's gone in so many circles in her brain
Right.
reading this that she is offended that they put the right word.
And then it says the last thing is, so it's definitely 1,000% undecided. So she's trying to say that because they use the word projected, it's undecided, which, like, she could have just said projected means undecided for this whole rant.
Yeah, she's getting mad that they said the right thing.
I also want to note
according to her own.
that she has put the thumbs up at the end of this, and she has taken the time to go in and change it to the white skin of the thumbs up, which is always nice. You love to see people being really specific about what color thumbs up they want to give. And then in red, she has added under it, left bias media never fails, which I guess means that saying, like you were saying, projected as the right word means what it says, and that's left bias. So
yes,
that one is really something to look at.
It's a ride.
And then this one just says, they love to insult your appearance over giving any facts on a black background with 2 exclamation points. That one, I mean, is pretty clear at least. Apparently people yelling at you online is instead of telling you facts.
I don't know.
That one's the way you would write if you didn't have anything to say but were mad at left wingers. Whatever.
That's her entire brand. But she's shifted from like a pretty basic white girl influencer aesthetic, and she seems to be shifting more towards this kind of just inflammatory personality, because that is what is getting her attention.
It seems like she is becoming more and more Idahoan as time moves on.
Yeah, she is. So this is her last post. It says, the media does not decide who the president is. Oh, yeah.
Is that a picture of her as well?
Yep.
Okay. That's kind of pointless.
I mean, I get, yeah, you're right. I guess.
How many likes does it have, though?
That has 1,300 likes.
Yeah, it must be right then. It's a lot of
Yeah,
likes.
I'm guessing so. The last other more recent posts are she's screenshotted the statement given by Trump like on the 7th. It was just
Okay.
all lying. And then she made a bunch of uh Trump cookies.
Wait, is that her?
Yeah, that's her.
She looks like she's in her 40s. Is this like a younger person, or is Idaho just different?
Um
Not
I
that I have
honestly
any issue with somebody in their 40s being like a thirst trap, but I find it strange that the way you're describing her makes it sound like she's like 20.
I think she is in her 20s. She's made some aesthetic choices that I think are making her look older
Okay.
in that photo. But in her other photo, she looks like she's in her 20s. But this like this brand of Instagram woman and
Yeah.
all of the QAnon shit is what I wanted to talk about it like tying it back to Instagram is that people, I don't know who is doing this or like what graphic designers are spending their time making the graphics and the nice looking shit
Yeah.
that brings credibility to this, because you like since the summer a lot of people have been making stuff to be reshared that is just like informational, or I mainly just that, just like infographic, easy to digest, like thoughts about protests, whatever. Um, the exact same thing has happened, but for like QAnon, and just completely like complete misinformation, and I don't know where it's coming from or like who these people are that spend the time to make the shit and
Yeah.
make it so attractive that it is shared by like Pinterest moms. But it's really, really like nefarious and scary that people are doing that. And it's interesting because I listened to a couple of just design podcasts, and I've
Yeah.
heard people talk about since the protests from earlier this summer and BLM and everything. Someone on one of these podcasts was saying that a lot of designers are just making that kind of shit kind of to pad their portfolio or their resume at
Hmm.
this point, which sure, I could see that happening.
Yeah, I definitely know people who've dabbled in like maybe some questionable shit because they need to.
Yeah.
Not need to, but it will support them financially.
Yeah, because it ultimately will be beneficial in other reasons than just
Yeah.
you making a thing that spreads a good sentiment. But I just think it's interesting that we've always thought of like the left, I will say generally, as being good at aesthetics,
Hmm.
but that's really not. I think it's changing a lot, and
I think
we're kind of underestimating.
I think people also overestimate what aesthetics means in society.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
aesthetics are important, but certain types of personalities tend to be good at certain types of aesthetic. Uh, there's a lot of conservative arts that are very like good to look at.
Hmm.
Uh, a lot of the really technical work in the past has been done by churches. It has been literally thousands of years since churches have been even slightly progressive in any way. Uh, that is not an aspect of like art. Uh, it's
Right.
just that it's just that progressive voices tend to have more to say about current events, while conservative voices have plenty to say about, let's say, decent photography or like uh, just like standard. Like I know a lot of people who are pretty fucking conservative and are great with like architecture. Like
Yeah.
that is just sort of a thing. And honestly, fashion photography style stuff is often more conservative. That is very rarely a progressive thing.
Oh yeah. That makes total sense in all of my experience dealing with
Yeah.
influencers. Yep. makes a lot of sense.
I mean,
But
just look at Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner was incredibly conservative. People felt like he was progressive, but he wasn't. He just wanted to photograph a whole bunch of like tall blonde women.
Yeah, for sure. And I was looking for an example of the kind of like graphics I was talking about, and if you search the hashtag save the children, Instagram is like, are you sure this is what you're looking for?
No, you're not.
Like, maybe don't. Which is funny. But there actually is, I can't remember who made it. I want to say Vox, but I don't think that's right. Some news media something put together a video talking about exactly what I'm talking about, like the kind of Instagram aesthetic applying itself to really scary things like QAnon and just general misinformation and shit like that, which is freaky. But
go into fucking Polish Instagram. You will find the most heinous shit. Because they're having such a big fucking like fascist streak over there. That is a great example of how it does not matter. Your politics will bleed into your art. Yeah. Well, that's exciting.
So I don't know. Before you share some cute aesthetic something on Instagram, just make sure you understand where it's coming from, I guess.
Before you put somebody's donks on your timeline, maybe check to make sure those donks don't have a MAGA sticker over the ass or something. Yeah, I think that's just something that is good to know is there, because it's been there forever, but tracking it is something we need to get better at.
Yeah, it's easy to, if something is visually or aesthetically nice, to associate it with good things, not necessarily the scary evil things.
Yeah, the Portlandia put a bird on it shit, I would say, is much more of a centrist style of comedy than progressive. And in another 30 years, that will be conservative. So, like, keep that in mind. All of the shit you see that is really interesting will be slowly less progressive, because that is what progressive means. And just because people do stuff doesn't mean you shouldn't be critical of it. Do stuff that you like, rather. Like Ren and Stimpy. But I'll yell about that. I'm also going to skip. I'll skip my last topic because I'll have more to talk about next week, I think. But I'll close out. But also, as a person who basically learned how to be in touch with my creative side in a productive way from like All Real Monsters, Ren and Stimpy, Rocket Power, whatever. Like the cartoons of our childhood, SpongeBob's and whatnot. Learning from that stuff and then finding out what some of the people who did that work were like is a pretty good reminder that you shouldn't just look at art you like and stop there.
Yeah.
But, now I have some comic books that were partially drawn by maybe pedophiles. So, hey, not necessarily the worst pedophiles, but definitely grooming some people. Rewatch Ren and Stimpy, I guess. Don't pay for it. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say this week.
Yep, that's all I've got. I have no instrument.
Well, you should see us out.
No, I can't make this into an instrument. It doesn't make any noise.
Oh,
I
but
thought
that was
something interesting would happen there.
nice wet slap. I'll take it.
Be gone thoughts.